Hey everyone, it's Adam with Ox's Odditorium, and today I will be covering Fallen Land. Fallen Land is a sandbox game for 2 to 5 players. It is created by Fallen Dominion Studios, and it takes about an hour per player to play. I'm going to go over some of the components first, then we'll jump to some of the rules. This is not a learn to play, it's just kind of an overview for you to better understand if you think this might be a game for you. And then we will also I'll give you my opinion on what I think is maybe lacking or great with the game. So jumping right into it, we have the board. So you get the board, and it is a hex grid with some legends on it to help you navigate through the game. And you get 10 city factions, basically, is what they are. So each player will be representing a leader of one of the designated surviving or most prestigious city factions left. And the way you win is to either gain 20 prestige or have your town score 80 town health. So it's kind of first to hit one of those is the winner at the end of any of the phases. It's not at the end of a round or turn per se. So you have that, and then you're going to have a whole bunch of cards. So as you can see, there's just stacks of cards here, and almost all the cards are unique, which is just amazing that someone came up with, literally just like this many items of things for you to run into. So there is a lot of variability where you aren't going to see a lot of these things game to game. You do have a whole bunch of different encounters and mission decks here. So typically difficulty goes from plains is the easiest to mountains to city radiation, and that's dictated on where you are on the map. So if you're just kind of on one of the brown squares or hexagons, I should say, you will take a plains encounter. You can pass through the mountains. You'll take a mountain, and then there's these red spots and city locations that you'll take the city rad. For mission ones, when you do setup, you will roll basically a D100 or 2D10s. Not going to get into the logistics of the proper way to roll that. I'll let you decide that for yourself. But for example, if I roll a 78, I will put a mission token down, and you'll put out just random mission tokens at the beginning of the game. So if you get to one of those squares, you can take a mission encounter rather than one of the 3 generic encounters. There's also then character and spoils cards and action cards. I'll kind of show you a little bit of what these look like. So there are a lot of flavor text in these cards. As you can see, there's lots of writing, but it's almost flavor text halfway down on every card, and then it's a pretty simple explanation with iconography. So, for example, this you'll gain 3 salvage, which is the currency of the game. You have to do basically a diplomatic check of 6 with 4 successes, and then a fight check with 5. Um, you never know when you're going to get into a naked Amish rake fight, and that is an individual fighting challenge. But I'll let you discover that for yourself when you get the game, if you get the game, if you think it's right for you. So that's kind of how the encounters break down. The characters are all laid out in this format, so you have their skills across the bottom. This is their carrying capacity because you can carry a whole bunch of items, which is awesome for customizing your guys or gals or characters or monsters or whatever it is, vehicles in some cases. Once per game, this is a skill that the friendly Iowan can do, and then if they have this little chain link icon, shows that if you have that item, you get these bonuses on top of the bonuses that are provided there as well. So as you can see, a whole bunch of characters, whole deck of characters. I'm not going to go through every single one. And then you can slot in some items right underneath. So for example, if the friendly Iowan, because this is entertaining here, has the heavy rocket launcher, you just slide it right underneath there, and then it kind of shows you here shortcuts on if there's abilities or not. So you can lay out multiple items then. I guess we're equipping this guy with lots of weapons. and you can just kind of fill up till they're at their capacity. So, for example, the friendly Iowan is now full with his semi-automatic pistol and the rocket launcher. And then that modifies his, in this case, his attack up to 19. So, oh, and you can't even see what I'm talking about here. Right here, up to 19. So you can just keep on stacking them underneath. Why the numbers? I'll kind of explain how the numbers work. So a 19, you're always looking to roll under your stat. So 19, well, you're like, if you're rolling a d10, you're like, well, it's impossible to roll over. Well, that's because how it works is for every value of 10 you get, it's an auto success. And if you roll a 10, it's an auto fail and you lose all successes. And if you roll a 1, it is an auto pass. And basically you will be trying to get up to, as I showed you on here, like for example, to do this, you need 3 science successes. So if the friendly Iowan had to roll, he would have to roll under a 6 to get just 1 success. So that's kind of how the cards break down. So that's going to be a major part in the game, is that whole skill check, running into encounters, and using your characters to explore the world that Fallen Dominion has created for you. A couple other components. We'll stay on the zoomed in screen here. Town technologies. So you can purchase town technologies. You start with a couple from your faction, and they give you bonuses. So 1 free spoils card per turn, or the communication center, you get an extra 2 movement with your party. And your party will consist of 5 characters and then a possible vehicle card. If you decide to upgrade those at any time, you can flip them over to the gold side, and you can see that they get better as you upgrade. There is a whole bunch of technology cards, or not cards, but tokens here. So you can see there's a whole tray of them. I did 3D print these trays just for easier organization. Kind of speaking of tokens, though, you also have player tokens here in the middle. You have basically damage counters on one side, and then salvage, which is the currency of the game, on the other. You have some turn order summary cards for all players. And then the first player actually gets the first player sheet. So this right here is super handy because it goes into more detail. So you can see town phase here. It's just a small explanation where the town phase here is literally going to walk you through the town phase. So this is a great learning tool. And eventually you'll be able to get rid of it. But we'll be jumping into those phases in a second. Just to let you know too, I have all my cards mixed together. There is currently 2 expansions out. One is a kind of like a small expansion I'd consider, just a card expansion, which adds more cards. And then there is this Fallen Land, Journey into Darkness, which extends the player count from 2 to 5 to 1 to 6. So there's solo rules in there, and also allows you to have a 6th player, kind of for an epic battle of the leaders in the US that are left after the Great War. You have dice. You do get 1 set of dice to match those little pips on your city factions. I've just thrown a whole bunch of dice for counters, and also to have more dice at the table. I found it very useful. And then I guess let's jump into some of the gameplay here. So your first phase will be the effects phase, and that's kind of an upkeep phase. You'll see if your characters are suffering from psychological damage or not, and if they are, you'll discard them. And then you'll also kind of activate any world encounters that might be out at the time. Very simple. The next phase is the town phase. So the town phase, you start getting a little bit more meat on the bones there. That is basically when you're managing your city. So you're going to get action cards. You can basically trade, sell items, buy new items, upgrade your technologies. Let's see here. What else is there? You can also hire an NPCM, so a non-player character mercenary card. They're quite interesting. They are in the action deck, and they are specific like characters that you can hire and give them a target, and there are tokens for them, and they will essentially act as a player character, but they're non-player because they have automated rules, and move across and accomplish something for you. So those are very fun. And then kind of the end of the business phase, well, not at the end, it's right in the middle. You will roll for the town events chart. So this is just a fun way to add some randomness because it is the end of the world essentially, and there's going to be some crazy stuff, and it can either be beneficial for you or it's going to hurt you or there's going to be no effect. So you roll a d10, 1 through 3, you gain good things because a lot of times in this game, rolling lower is better. There are some cases where that's not true, but and then the 4 through 7, there's just no effect, and 8 through 10, bad things happen to you. After that, you jump into the party exploits phase. So that's on this other side here. Party exploits is where basically you're going to mostly be for the game. So in turn order, basically, well, first you're going to have any of those non-player character mercenary cards activate and try to accomplish their goals. Then you're going to move into the party exploits, basically section of the party exploits phase, and that's where time is essentially passing. So it's pretty thematic in terms of basically each turn is a month. So how they break it down is instead of you getting 4 action points, you have 4 weeks to do things, and every as they call them deed. So you have movement deed, encounter deed, PvP deed, resource deed, healing deed, and a mission deed. So any of those deeds cost so many weeks, and you can do like a little borrow mechanic with this week penalty, and then you put it in front of you if you're borrowing weeks to kind of, in some cases, like if you want to do a mission deed, which is 3 weeks, and then also have to heal after that, well, you're going to have to steal some weeks from the future per se, but it's just kind of knowing that then the next turn you're going to be penalized and have a lesser turn. You can only steal a max of 2 weeks on here, so it's a double-sided chip. It's 1 and 2. But why this takes so long is that's where you're going to do all of these encounters. So the encounters, then you read the fluff, you get into it, you check the thing, you try to do that skill, you try to succeed, and then you're going to either get the rewards or the failure effects of that skill test or skill test multiples. You'll also be trying to conquer resources out here, which will help every turn increase your town health if you start controlling the resources on the board. So there are these like little oil towers out on the board here. And so it takes a lot of time in that phase to kind of go through those steps for every player at the table. So if there's 3 players, every player has to use all 4 weeks. So if they're just moving cross country, they're going to have multiple encounters they're doing just in their turn alone, and then it goes to the next player. Some of the things you can do, I'll just jump into those. So I kind of named them off already. The movement deed costs 1 week, and you will be taking your movement stats. If you have a vehicle, it usually increases. If you have the communication tower, it increases. And you're going to roll a d6, and you're going to add your number plus your movement bonus. So a 6 is a very good one. It allows you to move quite far. And then you will take an encounter which costs a week, so you can draw an encounter from the appropriate deck or activate a point of interest for 1 week. So that would be like I was going to say a mission deed, but that's not true because the mission deed takes 3 weeks. But then also, if you're on a resource for 2 weeks, you can claim a resource. Or if you're going to try to attack another party, it takes a week. So it's all broken down here for you. And then once all players have taken their turn, you'll do the end phase. So the end phase basically is super simple. You just move 1 space to the right, the turn track. There is no limit to turns, and then you pass this sheet to the next player, and you basically flip over and you go through it just like I did with you. In a nutshell, it's pretty simple there. Where it kind of gets difficult is all the iconography and understanding what each of these mean, the little icons there, how the characters work, how the spoils work. So that's why you end up having this meaty rule book. It at first when I read it, it seemed a little confusing, but now when I refer back to it every once in a while, it seems to really click. So, it's not a bad rule book. It's definitely very nice. Where is Fallen Land going? Well, I'm doing this review because Fallen Land is actually going to have an upcoming Kickstarter. They are having their third expansion in the set come out along with a second edition. Very exciting. They did mention if you do have the original Fallen Land during the Kickstarter, and most likely it'll be a Kickstarter exclusive because it'll just be hard to manage post Kickstarter. Because they'll just be selling second edition there, you can get an upgrade kit for the Fallen Land first edition. Then there will be a new expansion called Fallen Land Descendants. You can check it out at their website. They have some info there. And rumor, kind of, it's not really a rumor, they're hoping to have it launch sometime in October. So definitely be on the lookout for that if you're kind of piqued by this. This is definitely an interesting game in terms of kind of going into the pros and cons. I think will help people understand because I feel like the rules explanation wasn't too in depth. Fallen Land has a huge pool of cards. So thus, with obviously drawing randomly and rolling dice, there is some randomness to the game. So relic cards, for example, relic spoils are very strong. So if you're not finding any, and Bob to your right has 6 relics, he's going to feel a little more powerful. Now, that is just kind of how it goes sometimes in Fallen Land. For me, I guess, yeah, that's a negative, but it truly makes me feel like I'm in the Fallen Land. It really adds to the experience of sometimes after the world has ended, not everyone's going to get one of everything that they want. And you have to go scrounge for it and you have to go fight for it. So it definitely adds to the thematics of the game and really makes it immersive experience. Another downside is when you have basically 6 characters out into a vehicle and you have multiple items on all of them, it can be a little confusing to track. And there's special abilities and there's item special abilities. It's very hard. So I've made, you can see these here. I have just currently one painted, but that's to help it kind of stand out more. I have success tokens I have 3D printed. So that way when I go to roll, I can just put down these on a character and know exactly how many there are. Some people use dice to count, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, however high it's going at that point. I find that sometimes confusing if you're rolling dice or you're putting dice down, especially if you're using D10s with it. So that can be a little hard. There are some ways to help track it. And then another downside is the party exploits phase. There can be downtime. So if you're playing with a full party of 5 and you're the last player to go, there's not a lot of player interaction in between waiting for your turn. So I definitely recommend. I found kind of the fun sweet spot is 3 players for me personally. But I wouldn't say that a big epic game wouldn't be awesome to do once in a while as well. Now that I've kind of warned you about some things with the game, I want to talk about the good because there is a lot of good here. First of all, the cards. Negative, yes, because there's only basically one of each type, but also that adds to the replayability immensely. You're just like, you never feel like you're playing the same game ever. Every item and encounter is unique, like I said. So it just like, it's crazy the amount of variation you have. You have the freedom to manage your city how you want, so that it does give you a true sandbox feel. You can go after your other players. You can try to just go get resources. You can literally just go adventuring and do encounters and still keep up with anyone else doing those different things. Because like I said, prestige to 20 or town health to 80. And how it works in ties is, let's say I hit town health at 80 and someone hits prestige at 20 in the same phase. It's broken down that every 1 prestige is worth 4 town health. So you can do a tiebreaker because you can compare who's higher on the secondary track then. And then, like I kind of said with the a little bit ago, it's a great immersive experience. And this the first player sheet is fantastic in my opinion. It really helps move the game along because people can just go down it, and the first player then is responsible for keeping the game moving. That being said, this game holds a special place in my collection along with one other game currently, where it may not have the flashiest mechanics. It may not have, anything super unique or cool or awesome components. I mean, there are cool components. There's lots of cardboard tokens, these little player things I've painted up, but they come just in gray plastic, which they're okay. Obviously, we're in the age of miniature board games. So there's a pretty high standard there, but this game has created what only one other game has created for me, and that is like the best memories of playing board games. You are going to be scarred for life from some game you played 3 years ago, and you're going to avoid that situation like the plague. And everyone at the table who was there is going to make fun of you for it, and you're going to have a great time. And it's so much fun. And I guess, I don't want to knock them for, no creativity or ingenuity. Like I said, for the third time, every card is individual. So if you see the amount of cards here, it's crazy to think someone did that. And then on top of it, the non-player character mercenary cards are my favorite. I love purchasing a merc and saying, go attack my friend over there, and you just can see them march across the map and hunt down what you're doing or different things like that. That is really cool because it constantly adds kind of like, you got the 3 people moving if you're in a 3-player game, and then suddenly there's a merc going across the map hunting you down, or you're getting hunted down, or you're having someone else being hunted down, or you're attacking their main base, their basically town with them, so they try to go back to reinforce and different things like that. It's the experience is why I play Fallen Land. I don't play it for flashy mechanics. I play it for the experience. This game will be very hard to knock out of my collection for that alone. This is one of these that I play with my friends, and like I said, you create the memories and you never forget those, and you have a great time doing it. So, with that said, check out their Kickstarter in October. It is a great game. It's rated very highly in on Board Game Geek. I believe it's like an 8.1 or something like that. It's quite high, and they also have a Facebook group you can join. They answer questions there. It's very helpful. John, one of the leads at Fallen Dominion, he's very interactive there. He will post updates. That's how we heard about the Kickstarter, mostly dates and things like that. They look for playtesters. So if you're really into it, that's a great resource to look. Obviously, they have a website also. Check them out. I'll put a link in the description of the video for you. But with that being said, Fallen Land, don't play it for the most balanced game in the world. Play it for the experiences you're going to have with your friends. On that note, have a great day, and we'll see you next time.